And welcome to Around the Ozarks Spotlight. Each week we uncover the stories behind the people who live and work here in Southwest Missouri. Those individuals with entrepreneurial spirit who work to better the lives of others or put pen to paper to write books about the stories and history of the Ozarks and its people. I'm your host, Scott Meier. Today we're going to explore the world of bow hunting in Missouri. Actually, I have a special place in my heart for that. With Darren Haverstick, the former president of the United Bowhunters of Missouri, currently the guy in charge of the treasury of the Bowhunters, which is probably a little tougher job than even being president. Welcome, Darren. How are you?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Glad you asked.
You know, I gotta throw one thing in before we get in there too far. I actually have been a bow hunter myself. I grew up in Wisconsin and spent a lot of time bow hunting back in the days of recurve bows. Which, by the way, when you're trying to hunt a deer, about the only thing you do is you're shaking so bad because you actually see one and you're trying to throw an arrow at it. I've got a brother now who has a crossbow and he gets 2 or 3 deer every year. So, very different world. I learned on a straight stick bow, which was really ridiculous. And I'm guessing you probably don't use any of that stuff anymore.
Well, you'd be incorrect. The United Bowhunters of Missouri, the organization, I would say 95% of us exclusively use traditional equipment, longbows, recurves, that sort of thing, self
Is
bows.
that right?
In fact, I'm a good friend of mine. She just killed a big elk last night with her new recurve, and I'm leaving for Alberta next Tuesday to hunt moose with my longbow. So,
No kidding. So you're
yep.
still using that stuff. It's like shooting an arrow off a broomstick, a longbow.
Uh, I love it. It's the only way to go. I make my own
So
arrows, my leather stuff. It's
so you're a bit of a purist when it comes to bow hunting.
that is correct. Yes. Yep. Very
Now,
much.
before we talked, I had a chance to go back and look at a little history in Missouri. I see in 2015 they weren't allowing crossbows for bow hunting. Is that still the case?
Oh no, no. They're I'm trying to remember when it was. It's been a while now that they've been legal for general use in archery season. Um, there's a lot of mixed feelings about that. I don't want to waste time on this podcast about that sort of thing. But the whole point behind including them in uh, the archery season, according to the Department of Conservation, was
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to get more people um, involved in the sport itself. In art, they want more participation. So they call it recruitment and retention. So uh, across the United States, the hunting population, people who hunt, is dwindling. It's not because most people have a even people who do not hunt. Most people have a favorable outlook on hunting. They don't care if
Mm-hmm.
other people hunt, but young people aren't taking it up. So, in order to keep more people in the field, the regulations folks need to come up with new ways to do that. So, by allowing folks to use crossbows during archery season, the point is
Mm-hmm.
more people will participate.
So is your feeling, and again, we don't want to get too deep into the woods, but is your feeling that crossbows are not archery per se?
Oh, 100%. Yes. There is no archery involved with a crossbow. I'm sorry, when you put a trigger on it, when you put a scope on it,
Yeah.
when you can walk around with it already ready to shoot. I mean, you said yourself, you shot a recurve, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Uh, Getting that deer close is one, and you got to be able to draw on it without being seen. When all you have to do is pull a trigger, it's just gun hunting as far as I'm concerned. But
Darren
that's
Haverstick is my guest today on Around the Ozark Spotlight. Darren is currently with the United Bowhunters of Missouri as their acting treasurer, but former president. One other question when it comes to that. I used to hunt. I had grandparents that were actually had won awards for their bow hunting prowess, and I recall a couple of times of having to go and trail a deer that had been that they had hit with a bow, but it had to bleed out. And I would guess one argument for crossbows, good or bad, would be the fact that they're probably a little more lethal than your average bow. Is that a fair statement?
That is not, no. I mean, look at it this way. If I stab you in the heart, okay, and I use a penknife or I use a butcher knife, you're still stabbed in the heart, correct? You're going to die. So there is absolutely no evidence supporting the lethality of one method over another. It has to come to do with shot placement. The one, and again, this is more anecdotal than anything else, but when you watch the stupid shows on TV that are trying to sell people things, and they make claims that their weapon can group at 100 yards or can group at 60 yards or whatever, it may be able to do that in the hands of a trained professional. But when Joe Blow goes out and buys a crossbow or it doesn't make a difference. If he goes out and buys a recurve at Walmart and practices for 30 minutes and thinks he's good to go to the woods and thinks he can make that 60-yard shot, that is
a fallacy.
That's not going to happen, and it causes right. There's where your deer get wounded, and it can be really? It can be any kind of weapon. I always tell everybody it's an old Dirty Harry Clint Eastwood movie. It's Magnum Force, if I remember right. Anyway, it's the one where Dirty Harry says a man has got to know his limitations, and that is a mantra everyone should have when they're bow hunting. I mean, you've got to know, and you've got to be able to say, hey, I'd really like to kill that deer, but I don't feel comfortable taking that shot. And being able to have the intestinal fortitude to say, I'm just going to let it walk. I don't,
Sure.
You're not going to starve to death. It's one of those deals where anymore, and again, these TV shows drive this. It's who's on the board first. And, it just disgusts me when I hear these people talk about their hit list for this year. I got this hit list. Really, do you hate animals that bad that you have a list of animals you want to kill? That's not what hunting is about. That is, you ought to have more respect for the animal. And it just drives me insane when I see these knuckleheads, holding, I got the grip and grin, and I smoked this deer, and they don't care about, they just took the life of an animal. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything to them. It's now they can brag to somebody, and that's just wrong as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
Darren, how long have you been hunting? When did you start hunting?
Well, I remember I was able to deer hunt when I was 10 years old. That would have been 1974. My dad let me started going, rifle hunting.
Sure.
Early 70s, there weren't any deer in the state of Missouri yet. Not very many. So I can remember many, many, many deer seasons not seeing a single deer. And then, the explosion of the population in the, I want to say late 80s. Mm-hmm. And then from then on, and now you go out, and especially during the opening weekend of firearm season, and you sit in your stand in the woods for an hour, and you're like, where are all the deer? You'll see 20 easy. It's
sure.
It amazes me. And you talk about a success story. The way that the Missouri Department of Conservation brought the deer population back from basically extirpation in the state to mm-hmm. what it is now, where they're everywhere. And you try to tell somebody that, well, it didn't used to be like that, and they can't even wrap their head around that. Because anywhere you go in not just a rural environment, just anywhere where there's a green grass growing, there's probably going to be a deer standing around over there. And it didn't used to be like that. Maybe that's why I'm so particular about them, or they hold a special place in my heart, because they were a very scarce resource when I was growing up.
So when you made the move from rifle hunting, although it sounds like you still do some rifle hunting, but when you particularly made the move to bow hunting, what age were you, and why did that occur?
That's a great question. I love to tell this story. So, and it all has to do with the population explosion in Missouri. Okay, so I grew up in northern Shannon County, poorest county in the state of Missouri, and my family was representative of the folks there. Okay.
Okay.
And we hunted to eat, and I'm not exaggerating that in the least. I mean, what we killed was what we had on the table. When I was a kid, and to this day, I love to squirrel hunt. Man, when I was a kid, as soon as I got my chores done after work or after school, I was in the squirrel woods.
Sure.
And my mom threatened to whip me, I don't know how many times. If you bring one more squirrel to the house, I'm tired. We got enough squirrels in the freezer. Well, she could whip me every day, and I'm still going squirrel hunting. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So it got to be, we're filling your tag, rifle tag, firearms tags. It got to be where there, it was going to happen. You may have to wait a day or two, but it was going to happen. And then it got, that was back still when we had basically one tag per season. It was a long time ago. It was bucks only. Then it was any deer, but still only one. And then they started liberalizing the season. I own a big farm. It's my family farm over in northern Shannon County. And we get landowner tags. Well, nowadays, I mean, I've got a stack of tags, like that between landowner and what I buy. If I could fill a fraction of them, I'd have more deer meat, and I know what to do it. But anyway, hunting just got to be too easy with a gun for me. All right. It was just killing. There was no hunting to it. I would go out, with a scope rifle. If you can't kill something 100 yards, you ought to be going to the house, and it was just, so anyway, I'd always been intrigued by bow hunting. My dad used to do it when I was a kid. He had an old Shakespeare he used to shoot in an old bear recurve. He wasn't what I would call, a bow hunter, but he hunted occasionally with it. Well, anyway, I worked with a guy named Greg Poston, and he was rabid about traditional bow hunting, and he and I shared a cubicle together. Well, he got me started. I'd like to hear what he was telling. Yeah, I'd like to try that. So he kept impressing upon me. Okay, now if you go bow hunting, you do take up bow hunting. It takes up time. It's not something, if you're serious about it, it's not like gun hunting where you just get up, you dust your cartridges off, and you wipe the dust off your scope, and you're ready to go. Right. There's some commitment there.
Sure.
So my daughter at that time, she was old enough where, she didn't require constant parental supervision on everything. So I asked my wife, I said, hey, I'm thinking about taking up bow hunting. Do you care? Well, boy, she made the mistake of saying, nah, go ahead. And that was, I want to say 99, around there, somewhere around there. So, so I took it up, and I've never looked back. And it's really kind of a cool. This is kind of a cool story too. A personal thing for me. Okay, so growing up, I grew up rough, and my dad, while he wasn't a bad father, he certainly wasn't a good father. He was a product of his environment, I guess. But everybody's father was like that where I grew up. Anyway, so we were kind of estranged a little bit, and he still lives at our family farm. So I called him up and I said, Dad, I'm taking up bow hunting. because he just recently had started doing a little bit more of it. I thought, well, let's give me a chance. Me and him, we can do that. Well, it was just like flipping a switch. I mean, we just instantly, it's all of a sudden, it's like instead of talking to each other every, couple months, it was like every week I'm getting the deer and turkey report, and we're all of a sudden, we're start planning what we're going to do for this hunt, and we're going to do that. And it just, I've gotten a lot of wonderful things out of bow hunting, but the number one is my father and I are best friends.
That's a great story. Hold on to that. We're going to come back with some more. We've got a break right now. We're talking to Darren Haverstick. Darren with the United Bowhunters of Missouri. He's actually the treasurer now, former president. And we'll be back in a moment with more Around the Ozarks Spotlight. I'm your host, Scott Meier. Back in just a minute.
Hey, everybody. It's Ethan and Sarah Forhetz from your favorite podcast, Around the Ozarks in 5. I'm sure you've been wondering, how can I get even more amazing stories, events, and witty banter to start my day?
Well, look no further. Here we are. Sign up for our daily newsletter. You'll have what's going on around the Ozarks right at your fingertips each weekday morning.
Yeah, just go to aroundtheozarks.com, click on the newsletter tab to sign up.
Thanks for listening to Around the Ozarks in 5. We hope to see you in your inbox soon.
Welcome back to the second half of today's Around the Ozarks Spotlight. We got a fun guest today because it's something that personally I love to do as well. It's called bow hunting. We're here with Darren Haverstick. Darren is a great storyteller, and I mean that, Darren. Also former president of the United Bowhunters of Missouri, as well as the current treasurer. You were talking about reconnecting with your father because of bow hunting. I got to ask you, for me personally, one of the greatest things about bow hunting was the ability to go out either in the early morning hours or the late afternoon in the fall in a field. This is before tree stands. I don't know that I'd ever want to shoot a bow out of a tree, but just the feeling that you get in the fall, the sun's going down, the deer start walking out into the cut down cornfield or the forest area, wherever you are. It's just such a great feel. You feel like you're the only person on earth. It's quiet, and you don't have other guys out there wearing orange, shooting guns, shooting at you, half of them, because they don't know what they're shooting at. And it's really, it kind of takes you back, I guess, to the roots of hunting, period. Is that fair?
There is that, what you're describing is absolutely magical. And if a non-hunter could just experience what you described for that 30 minutes between just before daylight, when you start hearing everything wake up, and you're the only human around, maybe, but you're certainly not the only living thing, and you feel so much a part of nature. I mean, it's just it's indescribable. The joy, the peace. That's what I want to say. The peace that I get from that experience. You feel so a part of the land, a part of everything, and you know, right then, I may be a human, but I'm just an animal. That's all I am. I'm just a predator, just like any of the other predators I may see today, and especially with bow hunting, since you have to spend so much time in the field to become successful. The things that you see, the things that I have seen that had absolutely nothing to do with me harvesting an animal, but are, just marked in my memory, that I know nobody would ever see unless they were hunting like that. Yeah. I saw just right here behind my house. I live out towards just north of town, Fairgrove, Missouri, and I got 5.5 acres, and I can hunt right behind my house, which I do all the time. I live at the top of the hill, drops all the way down to the bottom. There's a little flat about halfway down, and there's a pretty good mess of white oaks there. Acorns drop. one time I was hunting down there, and kept seeing this doe and fawn up there feeding on them acorns. That's just, I was watching them, and they'd go off and they'd disappear. And I saw, all of a sudden I seen, what is that? And there was a groundhog up there milling around getting them acorns. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I've seen groundhogs eat all kinds of stuff. Can't remember ever seeing them, milling around hunting up acorns, but we had a good white oak crop. Well, anyway, not too long after that, that doe and that fawn come back. So I got the doe and the fawn and that groundhog out there together. Well, I don't know how many of your listeners know about fawns, but they're just children. And they get very curious, and they want to see things, and they want to play with stuff. Well, that fawn, she laser focused in on that groundhog, and she'd kind of walk up towards it, and that groundhog kind of look at it, and I could see, I just knew exactly what was going to happen. So she kept getting closer and closer to that groundhog. Finally, that groundhog's like, look, dude, I don't know who you are, what your deal is, but I've had enough of this. Well, that groundhog charged that fawn. Of course, fawn's tail's up and away, it takes off. Mom's kind of nonplussed by it all. But, when are you ever going to see something like that? If somebody told you, I saw a groundhog chase a deer. Really? Yeah. Oh, I saw it. That's just kind of stuff you see. It's great.
Well, the United Bowhunters of Missouri are also doing good things for folks as well as for animals. Talk to us about Share the Harvest. What's that?
Okay, so this is a program that's near and dear to my heart. There's an organization in the state of Missouri called the Conservation Federation of Missouri, and it's probably the best kept secret in the state. A lot of people don't know this. If it wasn't for the CFM, Conservation Federation of Missouri, the Missouri Department of Conservation would not even exist. This organization, it's a private citizen group, members all across the state, and all they do is advocate for conservation in our state. And in 1936, it was them that got together and put a referendum on the ballot that got the Missouri Department of Conservation established, constitutional mandate and all that good stuff. But anyway, they do a lot of good things. One of the things they do is they have a program called Share the Harvest, which they started in '92 with the Conservation Department. And what is that? Well, what that program is we take donated venison from hunters during archery, rifle seasons, all the seasons that we have nowadays. And we take it to participating processors. The meat is ground, frozen, and then distributed throughout the state to various food banks. And it's all, you would not believe the behind the scenes coordinated effort that goes to make this program a success. Like I said, it's been going over 30 years now. And I think I saw a number, it's estimated we've donated, had over 5 million pounds of venison donated.
5 million pounds. Wow.
5 million pounds. And recently we started another part of that program called the Snack Stick program, where we create, or we have venison snack sticks made. And those, since snack stick, like a Slim Jim, it's a shelf stable item. Okay, well, ground meat isn't. It has to be frozen, and there's the logistics involved with keeping it, safe for the public to eat.
Sure.
Well, with these snack sticks, they've got a year, 18 months shelf life. So food banks love those things because you can plant, you can do some planning ahead. So we make these snack sticks, and ultimately they end up in the after school backpack programs around the state. And for those of you who don't know what a backpack program is, food insecurity is high in our state. One of the things that we try to do to combat that is at the elementary school level, we have a thing called a backpack program, and it may be in your school district, may not, but these kids, the only meals they're getting to eat are what they get at school. So when they go home for the weekend, they may not be able to eat till the next Monday. So what these backpack programs do is these kids take these backpacks home on Fridays full of food to have, so them and their families have something to eat for the weekend, and they come back, they bring the empty backpack back on Monday. So snack stick part of it is just another way for these kids to get, good protein. And it's kind of a win-win for everybody. Hunters donate deer, processors donate their time, volunteers donate their time to get all this distributed. And since it's a shelf-stable item, we don't have to worry so much about, you don't have to worry about little Jimmy forgetting the backpack and, I had 3 pounds of meat in that, but you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. But
so how does your average hunter get involved in Share the Harvest?
This is good. I'm glad you asked that. Okay, so the way a hunter he can go to the Conservation Federation of Missouri website or Missouri Department of Conservation website and look up where a participating processor is, a processor who will take a Share the Harvest deer. They're all over the state. There's probably one pretty close in your area. Okay, so if you want to donate an entire deer, so I kill a deer, I take it to a participating processor, the Conservation Federation of Missouri will pay up to $80 of the processing fee. And usually what happens is the processor who's participating cuts a deal, so the hunter doesn't, there is no, extra. The hunter just drops off a deer and says, I want to donate this. And that's it. Now, sometimes, there is we covered $80 of the $120. You need to pay the $40. Most hunters are like, I'm happy to do that. There are other organizations, churches and stuff that will pick up the residual. Anyway, so all you do is you just drop your deer off. That's it. Whole deer there. And it's donated. And then what usually happens then is the meat is ground and it's stored and saved. And it goes to a local food bank or a food bank in your area. So when you donate, if it makes it easier for you, you're not helping little Jimmy in the northwest corner and you live in the southeast corner. You're helping little Jimmy right there in your town,
Sure.
And that, that's a good thing. We are, there's lots of regulations involved. We have to do all the CWD testing with CWD in the state nowadays to make sure the meat's good. But, and if a hunter doesn't want to donate a whole deer, let's say, you kill a deer and you take it in to get processed. Okay. And I try to tell everybody this, you don't have to donate a whole deer, but could you spare 5 pounds? That's just a hump. That's just, that's a roast.
Sure.
You're going to pay for the processing that you don't get. We don't reimburse for partial deer, but you just get the feel good. Hey, I'm paying for my deer to get processed, whether I donate food or not. You're going to give 5 pounds away to somebody anyway. Somebody's going to, there's always somebody hitting you up for deer meat, why not donate and Share the Harvest? Say, hey, I want to donate 5 pounds. I want to donate 10 pounds. And the amount of good that this does, if you're not familiar with how a food bank works, okay, again, there's, canned goods, boxed items, those things keep forever. Meat, protein is the hardest thing for them to keep on hand because one, everybody wants it, and two, they don't have the facilities to take it. So this Share the Harvest helps them out so much with feeding the hungry because, it's they didn't have to pay for it. It's meat donated, and it's good. If you've ever had deer meat, that's a fine protein, and people really depend on this program.
Darren, in our last minute that we have left, as the treasurer of the United Bowhunters of Missouri, anything you need? How are we doing on money? You got enough? And if you don't have enough, how do we point people towards donating to Bowhunters of Missouri?
Well, don't donate to the Bowhunters of Missouri. We're good with cash, but the Share the Harvest program does need money. Costs have just went through the roof, and our revenue stream is flat. So if you just go to cfm.org for Conservation Federation of Missouri, click on their donate page. There's even I think one of the pull downs is for Share the Harvest. We'd love to have your deer when you start killing them, but we'd also like to have your money. So
I want to thank my guest today, Darren Haverstick. Darren, you were a great guest. Please come back. Will you come back in a little while? We'll find out how your deer hunt went.
Yep.
Excellent. Also, my producers, Taylor Worley and Jay Stevens, as well as all of you for joining us today. If you happen to miss all or part of today's program, you can find it in its entirety on the MidwestFamilySpringfield.com website, the AroundTheOzarks.com site, or our new app for ATO, which can be found in Apple apps or Android apps, where you can also hear and view today's show, as well as earlier shows from this year and last year. I'm Scott Meier, your host, and remember, every day is a gift.